Simona, thank you for taking the time to chat with us. I think a lot of people were upset seeing your video. What was your state of mind in that moment as you were getting dragged through the halls and we saw that officer step on your head?
It was so degrading, and at a time where I was so vulnerable, I don't know why anyone would commit that act of abuse, and I just felt so powerless because the police, they have such a high level of power that what are you supposed to do in that moment, right? And it just felt so degrading.
And now looking back at that video, what goes through your head when you're watching it?
Well, the first time I watched it, I was sobbing. It was awful. I don't think anyone wants to see themselves like that. But then, it kind of angered me to know how many people kind of go through this and how their voices aren't heard. And that's kind of why I'm going out and taking so many interviews, is because I have this chance to speak publicly about what happened. And I'm partly doing it for me, but also for so many people who cannot have their voices heard. For instance, Regis or Mr. Chowdhury, who unfortunately were killed during these wellness checks. And I think that's definitely something that we need to address.
As a nursing student yourself and someone who's working in a psych ward right now at a hospital, what do you think the response should have been in that moment when you called for help?
I definitely believe that the police should not be the only ones to arrive on a wellness check. Unless they have extensive training on de-escalation skills and training on mental health and things like that. I think there's a lot more better professions who can go ahead and assess the situation, de-escalate, and can move forward with treatment. So for instance, a social worker or mental health nurse, so many different allied health workers can better arrive and perform their duties because that's what they're trained to. And as a nursing student, we face abusive patients all the time, people who are verbally aggressive, who are physically aggressive. And you don't see us using force, and a lot of the time we don't even give medications for that. A lot of what we do as nurses is de-escalating, is to hear their issues, consider it, talk to them through it, and then kind of bring them back down to baseline so that we can provide better care, right?
And with all the conversation now about defunding the police and thinking of alternate ways that we could approach a situation like yours, where do you stand on it now, and what would you like to see happen?
I definitely believe that the police department get way too much of a funding. I do believe that they do incredible work, but I think a lot of the funding could be allocated better to solve the problems at the root. So things like addictions counseling, mental health counseling, and supports for homeless people. I think that would be a better way to spend the funding than for police to essentially put a band-aid on the problem and to solve it temporarily.
Mona, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for allowing me this platform.